Yes,
Hi.
Rajesh. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. How to share the screen?
Uh, there is a button next to leave on top, next to your mic button.
Yes. So my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll be presenting about the FMS, the GFDL's flexible modeling system, uh, which has been used in ODTM to parallelize the ODTM and also to do the IO, input output, and many other functionalities. So I'll be covering what is basically FMS and how it can be used to parallelize uh, a model. I mean, the way I'll talk a little bit about how ODTM has been parallelized using FMS, um, and what are the other functionalities available in FMS, and how they are used inside ODTM. And so this in this talk, I'm planning to cover how to parallelize a model, how to like if you want to add a new input variable, how to read a new input variable, how to do a uh, how to add a new output variable, and maybe a little bit about restart file, how to write a new variable to a restart file. Yeah, so yeah, these will be covered. So so basically, FMS is an infrastructure uh, which has a lot of functionalities uh, which can be used for developing a uh, complex models. Uh, Usually, the models which we use in climate studies. Uh, so the FMS provides basic functionalities such as domain decomposition, domain update, parallel IO, and other functionalities like time and calendar manager, tracking the model time and such things. And it provides routines for the outputting of different variables, which is known as the diagnostic manager. Many other scientific libraries such as for FFTs and many such scientific libraries are also part of this FMS shared infrastructure. So we'll go through some of so the first main thing we'll be going through will be how to do a domain decomposition, how to parallelize a model, how to do a domain decomposition, and like what it means by domain decomposition, and how to do a domain update. What does it mean by uh, domain update, etc. So what I thought was, this is uh, uh, there is too much of technical terms already in this. And if I just go through by talking from presentation, it might not be of any help. So what I thought was I'll use a very simple equation, maybe a heat equation, and solve it in serial, and then maybe using the FMS routines, we can parallelize it, and we can learn about domain decomposition and all these things. Maybe we can include, after that, we can include the parallel IO, DAG manager and all in that itself, and we can have a feeling of how to do all those things. So the same thing is done inside the ODTM also. So when you see the things in ODTM, you'll get a better idea what is being done there. So, so I'll switch to my terminal here now.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is visible, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think it is visible. Slightly small, but it is very good color. Can see it.
Okay. Is it smaller? I can make it bigger.
If you could make one step bigger. Oh, yes, 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 yes. This is very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I have already made the source code, the basic structure of that file. I've kept it inside the ODTM source directory. So if you go to, actually I haven't pushed it yet. So after this session, if this class, I'll be pushing all these this tutorial source codes to our ODTM Bitbucket repository, so everyone can just do a git pull and get all the files. So right now it won't be there, and so you just have to maybe listen carefully what I'm doing here. So so this will be inside the source directory in heat equation, and so there are a few files, but some of these files are just output files. So I'll remove it first. Okay. Yeah. So these are the necessary files. Okay, I'll right away do the git add. Yeah. So the tutorial the example code is in main.f90. So this is just a simple heat equation, 2D heat equation. So you can see that here. So in the x direction, the domain has, let's say I'm taking as 1,000 points. In the y direction, I am taking the domain size as from 500 points, and this is number of time steps. So how many time steps I'm going to solve, for how many time steps I'm going to solve this equation. So I'm taking it as 100. All these are just arbitrary numbers. Okay. So u is my the state variable here. So I've defined two arrays here. You can see two arrays, u and u1. Then some few other parameters. dt is the time step. It's just one. I've kept one. Dx and dy is the the resolution or grid size in x direction and grid size in y direction. Again, I am keeping it as just as one. K is the heat coefficient. I'm just putting it as 0.5 here, and some other variables I've defined. For time being, just ignore these lines. Okay, these 2-3 lines. I'll come to that later. So I'm defining some constants here, Cx, Cy. These are basically the CFL constants. Then I'm allocating the array. So these are actually I'm assuming some things here. First of all, I am assuming that all of you know basics of Fortran. I'm also assuming that all of you know heat equation, how to do, a basic finite difference method. And so I'm talking in terms, I'm talking with all those assumptions. So that's why I'm going a little fast here. But if there is any doubts, you can stop me and ask me in between. Here I'm allocating the array. So here I'm allocating an array with a lower bound of 0 and an upper bound of nx plus 1. And then in the second dimension, 0 to ny plus 1. So so why I'm taking 0 and nx plus 1 is because the 0 and the nx plus 1 that row or column that will be the boundaries of this domain. Okay, my actual the domain is 1 to nx. So I'm just taking one boundary along the domain. So so that's why I'm taking it as 0 and nx plus 1 and 0 and y plus 1 here. So this particular array u will start from 0. The index will start from 0 to nx plus 1, that is 1001. And in the second dimension, it will start from 0 to 501. Okay. I'm allocating another array, u1, which is 1 to nx and 1 to ny. I'm just initializing u to 0 everywhere. Then I'm giving a boundary condition here. Okay. So this is the this is the leftmost boundary. So that is why the x is 0. Okay, so this is the leftmost boundary, and then and in the y direction, in the middle of the y. So it's and I'm putting 10 there. So it's like I'm heating in the left boundary, middle of the left boundary. I'm putting a heat source. Okay. So this is something similar to that. And now I'm solving in time. Okay. So here I'm going from 1 to NT. So NT is 100. So I'm solving it for 100 time steps. So this is where I'm doing the solution. So basically for every grid point in I'm solving the heat equation here, a discretized form of the heat equation here. So here U1 will become the predicted variable, the values in the next time step. And once you get all U1, the previous time step is replaced by the current time step. That's what's being done here. And this will just go on. Okay. And then, so that's it. So basically we are solving that. And here I'm writing it. So, and again, this part I'll come later. So this is a simple heat equation in 2D. So this is how we solve it in a serial form. Okay. Now coming to these two things. So actually I wanted to get an output, right? I want to see whether it's doing the right thing. So I want to get an output of this U variable here. For that, I could have written it in many formats. Maybe I can write it into an ASCII format. I can write it into binary format. But I mean, by default, Fortran supports all this. But it's difficult to visualize, and also I wanted it in NC, in NetCDF format itself. For that, you can. I'm using the FMS functionalities here. So I'm not using any other functionalities of FMS here. I'm just using the ability to write an HCDF file. That functionality of FMS I'm using here. So to use that, so you need some prerequisites. So for that, I have to import all these libraries from FMS. So here I have to import MPP init, FMS init, FMS end, write data, FMS IO init, FMS IO exit, and some other functions also, which are not necessary, but I'm importing it anyway. So when you're using FMS in a code, the first call should always be this, that is MPP init. Okay. So even in your model, if you see in ODTM, the first call will be MPP init. So this initializes the FMS infrastructure actually. Not exactly the FMS infrastructure. There is an underlying infrastructure called MPP. So that's the basic layer of FMS, and that it initializes that basic layer of FMS, which is called MPP. And then the second call should be FMS init. Okay. So once you do these two, your FMS infrastructure is initialized. Okay, you're ready to use all the functionalities of FMS infrastructure. Now, now here I'm just printing how many processor I'm using. And I'm using a function called mpp_npes. So this is called mpp number of processor elements. Okay, so this is mpp nps. It's a function which returns how many number of processor we are using currently. Okay, so you'll get that information from this function, and this function is imported from MPP mode, which is part of FMS. This is just for information. I'm just printing it. Anyway, in this case, we'll be using only one processor, definitely, because we haven't yet parallelized it. So we can't use more number of processors. We have to use only one processor here. So after doing that, here I'm using another subroutine, which is again part of FMS. I imported it from FMS mode. You can see here, write data. And I'm writing, so the write data takes 3 arguments. The first argument is a netcdf file name, and the file name I'm giving as heat equation _out. Second argument is a variable name, field name or variable name. So the field name I'm giving as u here, and the data which you want to write. Okay, so the data I want to write is u here. Once I do that, so after solving for 100 time step, I'm writing the data. Once I write the data, I'm ready to end the program. So you have to end the program. When you're using FMS, you have to end the program in a particular way. You have to call first the FMS IO exit. So this is FMS input output exit, and then FMS end, and then MPP exit. So you have to call all these 3 end routines to end the FMS, exit the FMS in a proper way. Okay. So this is a serial code, serial heat equation. We can compile it and see, and maybe you can run it and see how the output is coming, right?
Prajesh, I have a doubt in the code.
Yeah.
The question is, how is the boundary specified in this code?
Yeah, this is boundaries or
boundary condition for the u variable.
Yeah, I'm just putting it here. So the boundary is the u. I mean, there is a boundary around. So the actual domain is 1 to 1000 and 1 to 500. Okay. And I'm putting a boundary around it here. That's why the u is from 0 to nx plus 1. And
yeah, but what is the condition for? What is the condition given for that?
Condition is just
zero.
Yeah, you at this point, that is the leftmost boundary, and the middle part of that.
Okay, is fixed 20 to 30 y direction, x direction at 0.
Yeah.
What about the other side and in the larger side?
I mean, all other sides, I'm putting it as
Sir, 0.
0 all the time.
Yeah. If you just see the line before that, he's saying the entire domain is 0.
Okay. Yeah. So this heat diffuses, and at the boundary, what does that mean? It will not diffuse further.
No, it will diffuse. It will diffuse, and it's like environment. After that, it continuously diffuses towards that, and it's still 0. There.
Okay, so it goes to 0 there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Prajesh, I have another question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while ending the program, you are, I don't think if it is important here, but while starting, you use MPP init, FMS init. But while exiting, you write FMS IO exit, FMS end, and MPP. But we did not
So
start
actually,
IO exit.
actually, you can.
I saw the routine here. FMS IO init also.
Call FMS IO init. You can do it actually, but that actually, I don't know, somehow it is redundant because FMS init itself calls FMS IO init, but somehow FMS N doesn't call FMS IO exit. So FMS IO exit should be called explicitly. But even you can put it IO init also. Yeah, to be consistent. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I have put 20 to 30, but I thought it was 50. That's why I put 20 to 30. But it's 500, so maybe I'll put it as 200 to 300. Okay, for the boundary condition. I just noticed that now. So let's compile it and see. So for compiling, I have made a script here, which is make.sh. We don't need all these things. So this compilation script looks little, it's little complicated actually, because while using FMS, we use a compile. We use a method for compilation. So the make file is generated using a program called mkmf. It's make file, which lies inside the bin directory. So we use this program to make the make file, which we then uses for compilation. So first we have to make a make file, and that's also done dynamically when we use FMS. And also here the compilation is done in 2 steps. The first step is to compile the FMS library, which happens here, compilation of the FMS library. And then after once the library is compiled, so the library will be lib_fms.a. Then we go and compile whatever source code we need. We do it like this because this FMS library takes a lot of time to compile, and unless and until we are changing something of FMS library, we don't need to recompile it every time when we make some source code changes. So we usually, it's better to keep it as a library and then compile only the source code which we edit, and then link it to that library. So that's how it is done here. So that's why there are 2 steps in this compilation. It's not ODT. So here we compile first the FMS library and then the ODTM. So basically this make script is nothing but a copy of that make ODTM script, which is already there here. Okay. So I copied the script here and I made a few changes to compile this heat equation script. So I'm compiling it. Yeah, it compiled successfully. There was only one file, so it compiled pretty quick. So the exe file of this lies again in the exec directory, exec heat equation, and again heat equation exe. So this is the exe file. Now this is a serial program actually, but if we try to run this like this, just like a dot out, this will give an error. This happens in Pratyush, but this will work just like this in Aditya. In Pratyush, if you are using MPI, if you are using parallel MPI, even if you are using just one single processor, you can't run it just like this. You have to run it through a batch, submit and all. So even if it is a serial job, you have to run it through a PBS script. So I've created a PBS script also here to submit it, and I'm using just one core and one processor. Here it is 16, but we'll be using only one processor here. And so this is
Prajesh.
Yeah.
So this is already scripted in a parallel mode only already. Because I didn't get it. Like why this will work on Aditya and not on Pratyush?
So this is actually, we haven't parallelized it.
Okay.
Okay. But still, so there is a call MPP init in this, right?
Okay.
This call. So this will actually call another subroutine, which is known as MPI init. Okay.
Okay.
Which is a part of an MPI library. And in Pratyush, when an MPI library will be called, you can't run that like this. Okay, it will give an error. So it will give some error in the MPI init error. You see the error messages.
So basically, in Pratyush, we use only like parallelized code only. Basically, even I'm using one processor, it will be submitted as a parallel code only, not the serial one, like that. Or
No, not exact, not like that.
Okay.
So okay, I'll show you what. Let's say I'm commenting this all out. Okay.
Mhm.
If I comment this all out, and then let's say I compile it, and then if I run, okay, okay. So if I compile it just using FTN here, I think I have to do this source also. Yeah. If I just compile it using the the normal compiler FTN and the main F90. One more thing. I have to comment all these out. Okay. Now it produced a exe which is a.out. If I run this, it will run without any error.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. But if because I'm using this MPP init in turn calls another. It calls MPI init. Okay. And MPI init only works in Pratyush if you use it through a batch mode. So that's the thing. So I mean, you don't have to worry about that much if because what I'm saying is yes, we are not yet using MPI here. Okay. We are still using only one processor. The code is still serial. Everything is just serial.
Okay.
Still, Pratyush won't allow you to run this just because you are calling MPI init.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we'll be parallelizing it. So we anyway need a batch submit. So it's better to use a batch submit anyway. So I've created this script for submitting it in batch. So you can, I think you all know what all these mean. So CD to this particular work directory from where I'm submitting this job, and then source that environment file, and then I'm just linking that exe here, and then using AP run, I'm running the seat equation exe. Okay. So I just revert all the changes back. Yeah. File again. And then
Rajesh,
yeah.
Can you do a Q stat? What is that time and use? I don't know that. So
Yeah, time use. I'm not sure what it is. It should be the time since it started running, but I don't know, but it doesn't like it got killed. Yeah, so the job is finished. Let's see the output log here. Yeah, so I think the job was finished. You can see the NC file here, heat equation.nc. Okay. You do an NC dump on this. Yeah, you can see the x-axis has 1000 points, y-axis has 500 points, z-axis is just 1, and the variable is here. Okay. I don't know how to.
Prajesh, these attributes of NetCDF and all our FMS will contribute it from its own side?
You can see there is no much attribute here. Units are none. Long name is just U, which
Okay.
name which we gave already. So there is not much attributes here. So this is this write data is a very simple, I mean, very quick way of writing a NetCDF output. If you want more functionalities, more control over that, there are other lower level routines which we can use. This is just if you just quickly want to output it and see something in NetCDF, we can use that.
Okay.
So to check this output, can use Ferret, I think, right?
So,
or should I just assume that it will be right and move forward to parallelizing the?
Yeah, I think so. So output is trivial in this context.
Yeah.
I would like to see the .e file if it has anything.
.e file.
Yeah, I mean there is a fmscute.o and then .e. E is the error file. So it gave some error. MPP clock end is called before.
Yeah. This error, right? I think
Yes.
that is because of some. I don't know. I mean, it should not come actually. Maybe I called FMS and IO exit both. It's because of some order of this. Okay, we'll rectify that error. Actually, it's not very. I mean, it's not. It's okay actually, that error.
Okay.
Yeah, we are anyway not using clock and all here right now. So we could write the output here, and let's assume that the computation is correct. Now let's see how to parallelize this. Okay. Okay. What? So let's say we want to run the same problem. That same problem in 10 processors. Okay. We want to distribute the same problem into 10 processors. Basically, what it means is we want to reduce this number of loops here in this particular section. In each processor, we want only a small chunk of points to be calculated, and likewise, the 10 processors will compute 10 chunks of the domain. So if you see this this particular equation, you can see that any ij point, any ith and j point depends upon I minus 1 and I plus 1 and j minus 1 and j plus 1. That means a calculation of ij point depends upon its neighbors, its immediate neighbors here. So that means which means that we need neighboring data points to compute any value at any particular grid point. So let's say we are dividing this this domain, which is 1000 into 500. into 10 equal partitions. Okay, only in X direction. Let's say. So that will be like first 100 points will be in one processor. Next 101 to 200 points will be in another processor, and so on. And in Y direction, all 500 will be in all the processors. So such a domain decomposition, this is called domain decomposition. Okay, how to decompose a domain and distribute it among some number of processors. So this is called domain decomposition. When you do the decomposition only in one direction, it's called the 1D domain decomposition, one-dimensional decomposition. Let's say I want to decompose the domain in both the directions. That is,
Is any network issue? Network issue there?
Let's say I'm using.
Rajesh, your voice is breaking. We are not able to hear you continuously.
50 processors. And in
Is Prajesh's voice clear to others? There is some issue. Prajesh, your network is a bit of trouble, I think. Hello.
I don't think he can hear properly.
Prajesh? I think he has. Prajesh, your voice is breaking.
I'm laying it out.
Prajesh, your voice is breaking.
Hello.
Hello. Voice is breaking. We did not hear last 1 minute from you.
Hello.
Yeah, we lost your 2 minutes.
Yeah. Actually, so is it okay now?
We stopped at 1D domain decomposition. Then you said, what if there is a 2D domain decomposition? We lost you there.
Yeah. Okay. So is it clear now?
Now it's clear. Now it's clear. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I just explain how, what it means by a domain decomposition. So
we lost your screen. Can you share your screen?
Okay. Yeah. 1 second. Is it visible?
Not yet.
Sir, I can see the screen.
How is that?
Yeah, I cannot.
I cannot. Maybe you are seeing his old screen.
I cannot see. Yeah.
Anju and Prajesh are on the same network.
I think I'm seeing it.
Yeah, no, we can't see the screen. Others, please mute those who don't speak.
Hello.
Yes, Prajesh, we can hear you.
Yeah, but can you see my screen?
No, we are not seeing your screen. Maybe
But
you...
some are, right?
No, nobody. Anju's reported she's seeing, but I don't know whether she's able to see it now.
Prajesh, I think your cursor is at T. Somewhere it's showing T right now.
Yeah, T. Yeah.
JT, right? I am able to see actually.
Yeah.
I think we all have to log out and relog in. Maybe nobody
Maybe, yeah.
seeing. Yeah.
From our desk.
Okay.
Is it because your video is on? Because Shikha's and
No, Pradesh, even I can't see. Now I can see.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, now I can also see. Yeah. I think I should, yeah. Video, maybe bandwidth was eating the bandwidth.
Yeah. Okay, so I just explained how we might do a domain decomposition if there are 10 processors, and if we want to decompose it in only X direction. Okay. So which we call as 1D decomposition. Let's say we have more number of processors and we want to use much more number of processors. In that case, we have to do a 2D decomposition, decompose the domain in both the directions. And let's say we have 50 number of processors. We want to use a 50 number of processors, and we want to do a 2D decomposition. So first thing is we need to decide what will be the layout of the processors. So the layout of the processor, let's say I'm taking a 10 processor in X direction and 5 processor in Y direction, which will be total of 50 processors. So in that case, in the first processor, there will be the domain from 1 to 100 and 1 to 100 and 1 to 1 to 100 and 1 to 100 in both the directions. Okay. In the second processor, there will be 100 and 1 to 200 and 1 to 100 in Y direction. Okay. And so on and so forth. I mean, and let's say in the 11th processor, okay, 11th processor will be in the second row, first column. In that processor, the domain will be in X, it will be 1 to 100, and in Y, it will be 100 and 1 to 200. Okay. Is that clear? It's very simple actually. How the domain decomposition works.
Yes.
It's clear, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's clear.
Yeah.
It's like a square.
So this is how
like a tile kind of structure, right? Like every tile will have a problem.
Yeah. Yes. So you just partition it into bigger tiles, maybe. So how that's the concept here, and how to do it using FMS routine. So FMS provides some high-level routines which does all this kind of decomposition for you, and it makes the whole coding much easier. If otherwise we were using directly the MPI, it would have been very difficult actually to deal with all these different domain indexes and all those things. So FML does those things for us. Okay. Apart from just decomposing this domain, we also need to do something called domain update. So why that is needed, we can see it from this particular equation here. So as I said, we at any given time step, at any given point, we for the solution we need all the neighboring points, right? Now, when it comes to, let's say, in the first processor, let's say, when it comes to a boundary point, okay, let's say in the first processor, the rightmost boundary, okay, the point in the rightmost boundary, the neighbor of that is actually will be lying in another processor, right? It will be in the second processor. Now, for solving this equation, this particular equation, we definitely need that value from that other processor. And this happens in every processor. In every processor at the edges of that particular domain, we need values from the neighboring processor. So this is done. I mean, the values are provided and by something called domain update. It's nothing but these processor interchange values. These processors will interchange the neighboring values to each other. So that's done using something called domain update, and FMS provides a very simple way of doing that, simple routine which can be used to do the domain update. So we'll see how to parallelize this model using FMS. So first thing is, as I said, we need to decide the layout, okay, the processor layout, okay. So the processor layout can be, okay. First of all, we'll import all the necessary functions from the FMS library. I don't remember it by heart, so let's look at the ODTM main code. What all things we need to import. So for the domain decomposition, all the routines lies in MPP domain _ mode. So in the module MPP domains mode, we have all the necessary domain decomposition routines. Okay. So I'm going to copy all this. And I'll use only whatever is needed. So I have imported some of the elements from the MPP domains mode, some routines and some functions. The domain 2D is a data type. Okay, it's a derived data type, and MPP define layout is actually to define a layout, a processor layout. Okay, with and then MPP define domains is how you do the domain decomposition. Okay, if you just call MPP define domain, the FMS will actually partition the domain into the right local domains, right? Local domains of whatever size you need. And these are a query function, MPP get compute domain and MPP get data domain and all. I'll show you how to use all those things. So first thing is to no. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. We are
my voice
slightly breaking, but audible.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So first thing is we define the layout. Defining the layout, you have to use MPP define layout. Okay. I'll copy this. Actually, this VPN is really slow. That's why I'm not able to
Okay.
properly. It's lagging. So what I'm doing here, what MPP layout does for you is it takes two input arguments. That is this first one, which is the size of the domain. Okay, size of the domain in terms of the lower bound and the upper bound in X direction, lower bound and upper bound in the Y direction. So here it is not INT, it is 1 to NX, and here then it is 1 to NY. The second argument is number of processors, which you can get it from this function MPP NPS. Okay. Then this is the output domain layout, and domain layout the output will be a 2D. So we can define this as domain layout, an array of 2 elements. Okay. So once you call this, it will give you the layout of processors, which is the most suitable for such a domain. Okay.
So Prajesh, may I ask one question?
Yeah.
This domain layout, you said it's a array, two-dimensional, 2 array variable, right? I mean.
Yeah. Two
values. Two values. So
yeah.
What are those values? Are they corner of the domain or?
No. This is processor layout. So how the processor should be layouted in two dimension. So let's say there is 50 number of processor.
Okay. But
whether
it has-
you want it at, like 2 into 25, or in what layout you want it.
but it has only size 2, so that means domain layout variable has only 2 sizes, right?
In the
Two entries in it.
two that
No, we cannot hear you. Your voice is totally off.
in the 2 direction.
Rajesh, we lost you
Yeah.
for almost a minute.
1 for x. The first will be the yes. So that will be like 5. Let's say, hello. Actually, the last.
I think there are issues with the
Hello?
Rajesh. Yes, we can hear you. Are you saying hello live? Because there are many conversation coming in between.
Yeah.
You are live, na?
Yeah.
Okay, we lost you a minute. In fact, we asked a question. Domain layout has 2 size. That means it can have only 2 entries. So what are those entries?
This is live.
It's not live. It has lag.
Yeah. Yeah. For particular layout is for the processors. Let's say we are 100 processors, or let's say we are using 200 processors. Whether we want to lay out the processors in 2D, whether we want to lay out the processor in 2D, like 2 into 100 or 4 into 50 or 10 into 20.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
So that is what this is for processor layout. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this function, this particular subroutine, what it does is it will give you an optimum processor layout for a particular problem. Okay. For a particular problem size. Yeah. So this will do layout. You can avoid this routine and directly give the layout as input. When you change the processor, you have to also give the layout. Okay, is it clear?
Yes.
My voice, is it coming?
There is a bit lag, but we understood your explanation of domain layout. We want to make sure you are speaking live with us.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, now that's live. Your response says that there is no lag. Okay, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So after once you have the domain layout,
Yeah, it is.
Now
Rajesh,
only the VPN
cannot
is gone.
hear you.
Rajesh, we are losing many of your valuable discussions. We are losing
Yeah, I
your
think
conversation.
I think it's because I'm connected to VPN.
Yes.
Okay.
So either I can either only use VPN or all this. So if I don't use VPN, I cannot.
One
I
thing we can do,
this.
someone else can share it for you if you share this file, but you are writing the code also, right? So that may not be practical.
Yeah, maybe one thing I could have done is I could have done this whole exercise and then maybe explain it, just going through the code.
Okay.
Which
Anyway,
I
let us.
can do in
Mhm.
ODTM also.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, otherwise I can, I can prepare a slide. I can prepare slides with maybe, I don't know, maybe drawings or something like that, and explain it that way also.
Yeah, but say now the conversation is very, I mean, not breaking. It in between it breaks. That's why.
Okay.
So maybe we'll continue and then hope it will not break again.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you have the layout, you can go forward and proceed to define the domain. For defining the domain, again, the first argument, you have to use this subroutine MPP define domain, and the arguments here are your domain size, your global domain size, as lower bound and upper bound. Domain layout, which you got from previous call. Then a variable called domain. Okay, so this variable should be declared as type domain 2D. Okay, so it should be declared as domain 2D. And then X halo and Y halo. So halo is what I told earlier about the boundaries. Okay, so in this particular equation, you see, you need one boundary, right? The nearest boundary to a point in all the directions, in both the X direction and also in the Y direction. So this is known as the halo. So here I only need one halo. Okay, in some cases, like if you're going for a higher degree solver, you might need more boundary points. You might need 2 or 3 boundary points. In that case, you might need you'll need to put halo as 2 or 3 you required. So here I only need one halo, 1 point as halo, 1 boundary point. So I am putting halo as 1. So X halo is 1, Y halo is 1. Okay.
Yeah, Prajesh, I have a small doubt here.
Yes,
Here
yes.
you mentioned domain is a variable in a
Yeah.
third argument, but
Yes,
then you
domain.
declare it as a type domain 2D domain.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
in that 2D, D is capital. So, however, there is another domain 2D is mentioned in the earlier under the modules.
Oh, okay. So actually, I mean,
Are they
it's the
same?
same thing actually. Yeah,
Okay.
their thing, their thing.
So
Yeah,
there should be small d. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Just confirm.
Yeah.
So that name, any name, or this only this name available? Domain 2D.
Domain 2D is like, real, saying like real.
Yeah, and we
It's
cannot
it's
use
a
any
name.
other name, right? You can only use domain 2D
No,
or
no,
domain
no.
1D.
Domain 2. Yeah, it's the name of the type.
Name
Like
of
real
type.
is the
Okay.
real is the name for the type, floating point.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is a domain will be a variable which is type domain 2D.
Okay. Okay.
It's a derived data type.
Okay.
Yeah. This name can be anything.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
This can be like, if you want to put something like that, you can put it, no problem. And
Okay.
you just have to use the same name here. Okay. So basically, all the information about your domain, about your domain decomposition, will be there in this variable. Everything related to your domain decomposition. How many processors are there? How they are? How the layout is? Who are the boundary processors? Who are the neighboring processors? How many halos should be shared? Everything will be, all such information will be there inside this particular variable. Okay. So once you call this, you have done the domain decomposition. Okay. Now your domain decomposition information, everything is inside inside this variable domain. Next thing is, now let's say I am using some number of processes. I'm using, let's say 50 processors. Now earlier I okay. Earlier I used you audible.
Your voice breaks.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
it's restored. Yeah.
Now it's clear, right? So earlier, earlier we allocated this array as a full domain, right? We allocated it from 0 to nx plus 1. That is full domain plus 1 boundary in both the dimension. Now we don't need that, right? Because we are going to use many number of processors. So we don't need to allocate this full array in all the processors. We only need the part of that domain which is allotted to that particular processor to be allocated. For that, we need to get the local upper and lower bound of the array. Okay. Is that clear? So 1 to nx and 1 to ny are the lower bound and upper bound of the global array of the full domain. Okay. We don't need to allocate the full domain in every processor. We only need the local domain, local arrays, which is just a part of this global domain to be allocated in each of these processors. But we need to we need to correctly get that partitioning, so we need to get the exact lower bounds and upper bounds for each processor, which means that, let's say, in the first processor, the lower bound will be lower bound will be 1 to 100 and 1 to 100 in y direction. Let's say in the 11th processor, it might be like 1 to 100 in x direction, but 101 to 200 in y direction. So these lower bounds and upper bounds we need to get. So we can get those using something called a routine called MPP get compute domain. Okay. Let's see how the usage of that. Yeah. So here it is. MPP get compute domain. So by using this call, you can get the upper bound and lower bounds in both the directions. Okay. So the input to this particular call is domain. Okay. The domain which we defined in this step. Okay. That is the input, and the outputs are these values. Okay. ISC, IEC, JSC, JEC. So ISC is the lower bound. That is I. It represents. I mean, the naming is something like this. I, because it's in the I direction, X direction. S is starting, and C is compute. Okay. So I'll tell you, there is another domain called data domain and compute domain. I'll tell you what the difference between those two. So wherever the computation is happening, that's the compute domain. So C is for compute domain. So ISC, the naming stands for that. You can use any name here, but this name. It tells a lot of things. So I use this naming convention. So IEC is again the lower bound of the array in X direction. Okay, I end compute, and in similar way, J start compute, J end compute. So we need to define these as integers. ISC, IEC, JSC, JEC. Okay. So I got the compute domain. The compute domain called the lower bounds and upper bounds. Next thing is, as I said, we need boundary values for computing this particular equation, right? So if the local array, let's say if the local array is 1 to 100, then you need 101 grid points value to compute the 100 grid point, right? So you basically need 101 value to be there in that array. So to make it easier, to make things easier, we define another domain which is called data domain, which we call data domain. It's just called data domain, which includes this boundary also, or which includes this halo also. So which you can get by MPP get compute, MPP get data domain. If routine call MPP get data domain, and can save it as ISD, IED, JSD, JED. In fact, actually, this is it can be, you can compute it directly from ISC, IEC, JSC, JEC itself, because ISD will be ISC minus halo. IED will be IEC plus halo. JSD will be JSC plus halo, minus halo, and JED will be JEC plus halo. Okay, but it's not always the case. In some cases where there is cyclic domain and all, it might be different. So it's better to use this function for doing that. So once you get the so now we have the upper bound and lower bound of the compute domain and also the data domain. So I'll define this also here. Okay. Now we can proceed to allocate the array. Okay. So
Prajesh, I have one doubt here.
Yes,
Suppose you have a 3-dimensional variable, so you have to accommodate here that dimension also, right, in the allocate?
Yes, in the allocate, yeah. So in that case, it will, okay, we'll do the 2-dimensional array allocation, then we'll just see the third dimension also.
Okay.
It'll be, yeah. So in this case, so here, this variable, you can see that it contains this boundary also, right? So we are going to allocate this as ISD to IED and JSD to JED. Okay.
Yeah.
So this variable is in data domain, and this I will
compute domain, right?
Yeah. This can also be in data domain, but it's not necessary. So
yeah,
you can just keep it in compute domain. ISJC. Okay. Now, I'm just initializing everything to 0. Now the boundary condition I'm giving. Now here we need to take care of something. Now earlier, because whole array was in just one processor, this was not a problem. Giving it like this was not a problem. But now this array is distributed among many number of processors, and U of 0 might not be there in many processors, right? It might be there in only in the leftmost processor. And also this 200 to 300 won't be there in all the processors. It will be in the in the processor which are there in the middle. So it will be some processor which lies in the leftmost middle will only have these values, right? These index values.
Yes.
So if we just give it like this, definitely this will give an error. There will be an error. Bound. Some error will come actually. So we need to take care of that here. Something. So so we can do something like this. So we know the lower bound of no, we know the ISD for any particular processor. Now, so we can use you do an if statement here that if ISD is equal to 0 and JSD is JSD JSD is greater than or equal to 100, and JED is than or equal to 100. Then
वो फाइल मैंने वापस भेज दिया कल, वो शिंदे जी को पूछो, कल ही भेजिए। Prajesh, I have a question here. Can I ask?
yes.
In this allocation, we are allocating the array U from ISC, that means in the data domain, start to end. However, in the real allocation, it may also, first tile will be from 0 to 50 or 51. Next will be from 50 to 101, right? Hello?
Hello. Yeah.
Prajesh, the first allocation will be say 0 to 51, okay, and Y direction also for the allocation. And next will be from 50 to 101.
Yes.
So actually, we are allocating an array at a higher indices. Will that not consume a big array?
Indices are okay. You mean it's not starting from 0. That's what you mean. Right?
That means in each processor, first processor get from 0 to 50 and 0 to 50 in X and Y. But next processor get 50 to 100 and 0 to 50. So in that case, in that processor, the first 50 allocation will be wasted, right? First 50 will not be.
No. Actually, it's just the index value. So the memory used will be
say,
just,
okay.
100 minus 50. Yeah, that.
Okay.
So in Fortran, you can start in Fortran 90, you can start any array from any indexes, even negative indexes is also possible.
Okay. Now, any other environmental variable or any variable readily available to get the values of say in this example 200 and 300 other than JSD and JED, any other array available to get the index of this 200 to 300?
Yeah. So you mean, let's say I allocated this like this. Okay, ISD, IED, JSD, JED. Now you can get the lower bound and upper bound using a function called intrinsic function called L bound of, let's say, if you do L bound of U, this will give you the value of ISD, whatever it is.
Low bound of U get the value of ISD.
And then you have to give a dimension also. So this, if you put it like this, I think it will give a 2D array, so which will have both ISD and JSD.
Okay.
Or if you put it as dim equal to 1, then like this, if you do, then it will give you ISD. And if you do L bound of 2, U comma 2, then it will give you the value of JSD. And similarly, there is a function called U bound.
Okay.
So give you,
Okay.
Okay. So now this is still not actually perfect, because still there can be an error, because if one processor is only from 200 to 210, this thing will still work, and here it will give an error. So we need to do actually something else also here for so so I can put this as minimum of maximum of JST and 200. Equal to min of JET and 300. I hope this is this part is clear.
If you don't give this condition, what will be the error?
So let's say my processor, by decomposition, it came as a so the JSD in a processor was 200 and JED is 210.
Okay.
210. Okay. Now if I put but this condition will be satisfied at that time, right? Because it's greater than 200, greater than or equal to 200, and less than JED is less than or equal to 300. So this condition is satisfied. So this if statement will work, and if I come here and put as 200 to 300, it does not have 200 to 300 there. It only has 200 to 210.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we keep an upper bound of the local JSD or 200. Keep a check.
Yes.
And minimum of JED and 300 is a check.
Yes, 300. Yeah.
But this should be inside a loop, right? So far it is going outside the loop. This because we don't.
This need not be inside the loop actually. Because the loop, I mean, all the computation happens only for the compute domain, which is actually so which will start from ISC, which is actually 1. So this is at the leftmost boundary, so that is never touched.
This is boundary condition. Okay. This is never updated. Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's never updated.
Okay.
Now coming to the computational part. all you have to do here is to change these things. So from now on, because there are many processors, all the processors don't have to do the job for 1 to nx and 1 to ny. It only have to do the job for the local compute domain, which is ISC to IEC and JSC to JEC. Okay. And again, this update will happen only for ISC to IEC, JSC to JEC. Okay. Yeah, so we basically parallelize a model here.
So in the write data part also, we only write the local domain, right? The computation domain.
Which one? Where?
Write data part.
Yeah, write data part. Yeah. The computational domain. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we have multiple outputs, which we have to combine later, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't have a global full
Yeah.
domain in any processor. By default, we don't have. So we have to. So actually, this writing, this will write in small chunks of for the process, right? But actually, if you there is another the write data, it will take another argument called domain, and if you give the domain here, then it will actually combine the output and then write.
Okay, so we can combine the output if we wish.
Yes.
Okay.
In the write data, you can directly combine if you give this. I'm not sure whether it is what I'm giving is the right way or not.
Okay.
But it is there. Let me check that. Yeah, it's domain actually. Okay, we'll keep that here, and we'll see if it writes it in. Yeah, if it combines. Okay, so so we actually parallelize a simple model here. So
Rajesh,
this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to know that once you called FMS init and all the modules, then it automatically sends everything to the processor depending upon ISC, IEC, JSC, and JEC. We need not. I mean, what I'm asking is, we cannot control something which is happening in a single processor, right? I mean, can we?
Yeah, you can, but which processor? That's the problem.
Yeah,
depending upon what.
Okay.
I think Shikha, you can control that using the same thing he controlled the boundary condition. Same way you can control inside the loop.
Basically, you can. Yeah. So basically, what you can control is not related to which processor, but related to which part of the domain you want to control.
Okay.
So identify that. If that will identify the processor by like automatic. Here, this if statement will work only in those processors where this is true.
Okay.
So that's how I am identifying those processors only. Yeah.
Right.
And also you can identify processors. So there is you can use this function MPP_P. Okay. Which will give you the ID of the processor. The ID of the processor is nothing but starting from 0 to NPS. N-1. So you can do something like this, MPP PE, call this, and if you say like if it is 0, okay, if it is 0th processor, then you can then do something here. Print.
Yeah, but in this case, we don't know really that which processor will be doing what, or we know it from the domain decomposition. That first processor will do this part.
So usually, So the domain FMS does the domain decomposition in the way that 0th processor will have the first corner.
And it goes
first corner domain.
Okay.
That I am not very sure. I think it goes row wise. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So, okay, I have another question. So when you're writing the data, how does it identify the file type? Suppose I don't want to write an etcdf. I want to write an ASCII file. But here we are not.
Here, write data.
Yeah. Yes.
Write data by default. I mean, not only by default, it supports only NetCDF. So.
Okay. And the third question is, right now we are doing a 2D decomposition here. Can we do a 3D decomposition also?
No.
Okay, so 1 and 2D are supported.
Yeah, I mean, at least this version of the FMS, which I'm using, it doesn't support. I don't know if they have updated it to 3D decomposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rajesh, I have a question. In the decomposition, can we keep the decomposition dimension at the outer bound and keep something in inner side? Say, for example, IKJ, can we go for that, or it is impossible?
I didn't get that. What was that?
Now we have a IJK construction, right? I and J and K.
Yes.
Can we go for IKJ while I and J are decomposed?
You mean the last two are decomposed and K is
no, not last. First and last are decomposed. In the middle.
No. You. I mean, see, you can decompose it in any way you want, but the problem will be with MPP. Oh, sorry. I mean, I missed something here. Okay. Very important. Something I missed here. Okay, so I'll tell you what will be the problem in that. This will answer your question also. Actually, we missed something very really important. We missed domain update. Okay. So so what will happen right now here is every processor will just keep on doing its part. Okay. Which starts from ISC to IEC, JSC to JEC. But after each time step, you need to update the boundaries, right? Because the boundary values have to come from the neighboring processor, which we are not doing right now. So that this is not correct. So before doing this computation, we need to do this domain update. Okay, it can be before or even it can be after also. So we have to call something called MPP domain update domain. Okay. that variable, that domain variable, domain, and the variable. Okay, the variable which we defined in data domain. Okay, which has the okay. So that should, so what this will do is it will update the halo. Okay, it will update that those boundaries with the neighboring values from the the values from the neighboring process. Okay, so this should be done. This once you do this, yeah, then your parallelization is complete.
Okay. Okay, so the question I asked earlier, it is not advisable, no? You cannot keep a.
Yeah, actually, so you can, you can do the decomposition and all, because it's just finding the ISC, IEC things. So that can be done, and you can allocate something like ISC, IEC, comma K, comma J, JSC, JEC, and all. But this might not work.
Okay. Okay.
MPP update domain.
Okay. Okay. And another question, in such a case, the K loop should be outside this I and J, na? It should begin with the K. How is it done?
No, it should be last.
It should be last.
Like yeah, X, Y, Z, yeah, IJK.
IJK, it should be last. That means after before I and J, na? It should be starting with the K, then I and J.
K.
Is it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Means in Fortran it will be like IJK.
IJK. Okay. So that means that loop will go after Jth loop. Is it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That is convenient because kth dimension processes are single column processes, so that can be taken within each tile, where mixing and all can be done. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah. Any more? Actually, I'll stop it here for today. Maybe in the next class, I'll show you how to do that diag manager, data override. It might take maybe half an hour, 1 hour.
Okay.
Right. This was very useful, actually.
One second. There is one mistake I made. So the MPP update domain, it's like this, I think. I mean, it's like U comma domain, not domain comma.
So we can call multi-variable in a row like U, V, and W comma domain, or we should repeat this syntax.
Just one variable.
One variable at a time. Okay.
Yeah, but you can call a 3-dimensional variable. If let's say you had K also in this dimension, you can just use directly U. It will update all the boundaries in all the levels.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is good. We will learn how to write a simple FMS code with this.
Yes. So I will push this file to the repository, and everyone can pull it and compile it and see if it is running and how the output is coming, and if there are any problems, we can discuss it in the next session.
Thank you so much, Brajesh. This was very, very helpful.
Yeah, this is very for this. We are now getting to the real part of the workshop. There's a lot of new information for us.
Yes. Okay, so are there any more questions?
Rajesh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is independent of what you told now, but from where do we call these modules? Is it like that, like CDO and NCL kind of things are installed in Pratyush and we are calling them like that? Like, what is this module system?
So module system is part of the Fortran language. You
Okay.
can write a module and you can compile it, and then you can use. So a module can contain subroutines, functions, variables, constants, and many things. A module can contain all these things, and you can use whatever is needed from those modules
Okay.
by using that syntax. Use module name, then
So these modules are customized with respect to the operating system, like Pratyush or Aditya we are using, not with respect
no,
to the
these
bot,
modules.
right?
No, these modules are actually the FMS it will work cross-platform with many different compilers or in any different any machine. It works cross-platform.
Okay. And second thing, which this operating system you are using, it looks very good actually. Means this is not the typical
This
that
is
we
actually
see black and white.
this is it's the same operating system only. This is the terminal. I've customized that bash profile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So any more questions? Okay. So if there are no more questions, then we will stop for the day and we'll meet each other again on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prajesh, for the session. It is
Okay.
very, very
Thank you,
useful.
Prajesh. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Shikha, please record video recording. Please update.